What is going on? We got the party in the house, a little dance music for everyone. Hello. How are you, Ron? What is going on?
Oh man, I am so excited about this free masterclass. It's something we've been doing for a while, and we've helped so many other people, but now we're doing it for free.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if we can give, then let's give. So we thought we'd share a little bit to everyone today. So if you haven't heard the Podcastinar Podcast to Profits, that is the way to go. And that's what we're going to be talking about for the next few minutes. Hey, Ron, what on earth is a Podcastinar?
Oh my goodness. A lot of people ask me about that. But before we get into that, let's just give them a quick overview exactly what it is. So everyone's heard of a webinar, right? You invite people, get them in a Zoom room, you pitch them. It's a webinar, it's a class. And you've heard of podcasts. This combines the two, and it's called a Podcastinar.
Perfect. All right. So we will get into the details of the Podcastinar and how you can do your very own. But first, let's talk about the agenda. Who is Corey and Ron? We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. Offers, webinars, why do people do them? And an audience to your webinar.
Yep. Then we're going to give you a little secret to help you 10x your audience to your message. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to create a Podcastinar. And then we're going to touch on a done for you, full, completely packaged up with a little bow Podcastinar.
Got to have the bow. It wouldn't be right without it. But first, who the heck are Ron and Corey? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. At the end of the day, I was working in restaurants, helping coaching people, doing all kinds of fun things for the last 25 years. And, I found myself in the business where only thing I loved was helping the people. Only thing I got any joy out of was coaching people. But then I met the one and only Ron Cool, and we started our own little thing, started coaching, but everything was in person, live seminars, live coaching, live masterminds, all the stuff that was local until one day we discovered online.
Yeah, that was a crazy day. We were looking for something. We didn't know exactly what it was. And we did know we had a message. We wanted to impact a lot of people. And doing it face-to-face just took too long, really, compared to getting in this online space. And we both love the creative piece of it as well. So we became agency owners and content creators. And we've helped hundreds of people launch podcasts successfully and get their message out. And we've helped people 10x their audience through Podcastinar since last year.
Yeah. So if you have any thoughts, questions, comments on podcasting, we are here to help. Our agency, we love all the editing, all the podcast coaching, like everything podcast related. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the Podcastinar because, more people need to know what this is. So, Ron, Podcastinar Masterclass 10x your webinar audience. What does that even mean?
Well, let's kind of start at the beginning. So we're going to back up a little bit, Corey. Offers and webinars. Why do people do them? Like, why are they so popular? What is drawing people to do them?
Well, at the end of the day, if you have an offer and you need to get it out there and you want your to go through the roof, then the best way is really through a webinar, or so it used to be, right? But anybody that knows ClickFunnels, anybody that knows Russell Brunson, he teaches the perfect webinar. And so here's just a little slide, a doodle of his from his books that he loves doing. And again, the perfect webinar, you're going to teach the one thing. You're going to give 3 secrets. Everybody has their version of this, but he goes through this, and it typically is roughly 90 minutes, sometimes 60, but the roughly 60 to 90 minute time frame. And then the last bit of that webinar is you going through how your solution, your offer, can help fix anything that he was just teaching, or anybody is teaching, right? Like you spend the first hour really teaching, and then maybe the next 20, 30 minutes going through your offer. Basically, your offer better be the solution for everything that you just taught. So be ready for anybody that they're doing a webinar. Watch how they do it. Learn how they do it. Learn what stories they're telling, and then listen to the offer. Listen to how they go through things, and listen to see, is their offer giving you the solution of everything they just talked about. Now, today we are not necessarily doing an offer or doing a webinar, but we're just going through what a Podcastinar is. And so, this is the perfect webinar by Russell Brunson. And if you want to take your offer to the next level, a webinar consistently done until you get all the questions asked, till you get all the stuff through it, is a huge, huge way that you could win with.
All right. So I understand the perfect webinar, and I think like some people out there didn't know exactly either A, how to do it. I was afraid to do it, but it's truly an amazing place where you can gather your customers and get about 60% of people through your webinar, and you can create leads through it. Most marketers have flipped to webinars, and it's an easy way for people to get their message to the people they're trying to reach. Very much feel like a one-on-one basis, even though it's a Zoom room full of a bunch of people, because at the end you can ask questions. It is interactive a little bit if you choose to do that style, but that's why I've seen so many people going to use the webinar. Corey, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you can get people excited about what you're going to talk about, truly give value to the way you talk about it and how you teach it, then at the end of the day, when you give an offer, it's awesome. Like people want it because they were excited about it. You taught them and gave them some good stuff. And then hopefully it's an interactive one, right? Like those are the best. Yeah. People can do a webinar on a live Zoom or a live Facebook or, all this way, but there's no interaction, right? Like we could maybe comment back and forth with a few people on that make comments, but it's not the real interaction that you can do with a true live webinar on a Zoom room or some kind of interactive virtual platform. But what a better way, instead of Ron, you and I talking to each other and me going through 90 minutes of all the stuff I would do in a webinar to one person. Like, the beauty of a webinar is you can do it to thousands. You can do it to so many people, one to many, and spend 90 minutes instead of trying to do that pitch over and over and over with one-to-one. And so that's why I love webinars personally.
Well, and the other piece that's good is people block out their time because they know they're going to learn something. It's a topic that interests them. They've searched it out because you've probably done your research and you are very targeted to the group of people that you're trying to bring into your webinar. So they've made the time. They're ready to hear whatever it is that you have, your solution to their pain point or their problems. And for the most part, it's something that is scheduled. And we see most people will either get into that webinar on the last day of the webinar. They're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to miss it. And they'll jump in at the last minute. So when you're making that webinar, always understand most of the tickets that are purchased or gotten for a free one is the last day.
Yep. All right. So a purpose of the webinar is to present a topic that is engaging, relevant, informative. However, some presenters may use it to network or promote a product by following up with participants through surveys after the fact. All right. So however you use your webinar, trust us, webinars, 60% of them end in creating loyal customers. So if you have a business and you want to get your message out there, get comfortable doing webinars.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you're probably going to stink at it at first, and it's going to feel very uncomfortable, especially if you've not done it. But as you get more and more used to doing this type of format, it does become a little easier. But you want to make sure you're giving value and your fans, let's just call them, are actually there because they want to learn what you have to offer. Okay. So a single webinar can get you over 1,000 leads. So if you think about doing webinars monthly or weekly, what would that do to your business? How would that increase just your lead generation magnet by doing these webinars? Now, it does take time on your part because most people want to watch them at their desktop so they could take notes, write it down, be fully engaged in a traditional webinar format.
Yes, but so anybody out there, if you're really thinking about a webinar, go like the whole process. You should do one a week for 52 weeks, and I guarantee you'll have the best, most incredible webinar out there. But if you had a webinar on a Thursday, you should show the replay on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? And then you can promote the next webinar Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you just repeat, rinse, recycle, repeat. And then the ultimate goal is when you stop getting questions, when you start getting sales, then you'll know that you're telling the right stories. You'll know that your offer is dialed in. And so, right, Ron, the goal is to put this thing on auto, right?
Yeah. So the object is, how do we, even though webinars are great, how do we take this and make this an evergreen thing where we can get it to people when they want to hear it?
Yep. And so there's obviously with the webinar and having it on auto, that is one way. But as you mentioned, so many people, if it's a webinar, if it's a training, that the best, most common usage for that is going to be on the desktop. But Ron, are you always in front of the desktop?
No, not at all. Sometimes I'm driving and my wife gets mad if I take my computer and I watch things on it. She gets mad when I'm on my phone watching on it when I'm driving. So
the watching, the video, sometimes it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
When if your time is in the car, if your time is cleaning, doing the yard work or doing chores, and that's the time that you want to learn something new, right? One of the biggest places that people go to learn is podcasts. And thus, Podcastinar was born.
Absolutely. So before we get into Podcastinar, let's just give you some tips to increase your audience to your webinar. All right. So the first one is most people join a webinar on Tuesdays. So Tuesday is the day. Okay. So that is one. But when you're going into it, make sure you set an attendance goal for yourself. So you know that you are reaching for something or you're trying to get something or go towards a goal. Okay. And talk about your webinar. Make sure you set up calendar reminders so you're on time. You can partner up with people and make sure you've set up time in your calendar that there's no distractions.
Yeah, absolutely. So to increase your webinar audience, you've got to have a message that you're going to teach that's worth it, because a big part of it is going to be, what are you doing before the webinar to get people there? Is it Facebook ads? Is it just a landing page? Is it in your Facebook group like we're doing right here? Is it to YouTube like we're doing right here? Where is it, right? Like, how are you getting those leads? So when you set your goals, then you got to make sure that everything is lined up to be enticing enough to get people there. And again, don't be afraid to pay for media. Like, it's nobody wants to pay if you're unsure of the stats, but Facebook ads work. YouTube ads work, right? It's crazy how well these platforms can dial in. If you look at something, 2 minutes later, you're looking at an ad for that same thing. Like, it is incredible. So figure out a way. What are you teaching? What are you giving? What is your offer? And how can you tell some stories and to teach people and then make your offer? All right. So that's just to increase your audience to your webinar. But there's one little piece. What if somebody could just listen to that webinar, right? So 10x your audience with our little secret, the Podcastinar secret. And Ron, I'm pretty excited about this next slide.
I'm stoked. All right, guys. So let's just talk about different ways that we've helped people take their message and put it into a podcast format and the benefits they had from it. So, first off, they didn't have to worry about what they look like, their camera, nothing. Okay. So, if they were just recording something and it's audio, you don't have to worry about yourself or any of those pieces. Some people were doing a live challenge and wanted just another format to make it a evergreen piece for them. You can do challenges. So Doug did a challenge where he taught people his frameworks to become a dream car winner with ClickFunnels. Okay.
Yeah, and so that one was a cool way to do it, right? So he's got a Facebook group of, I don't know, something like 6,000 people. A lot of people would see it live. He would do the training, but then at the moment he's done with the training, we would get the audio, and we were able to put it on a website, on YouTube, on the podcasting place. So he was still live on camera, but then now he's got this challenge as it happens on iTunes, on iHeartRadio, on Stitcher, on all these places. So some of his people that didn't have time to watch it live, don't have time to actually watch, now they can actually listen to it anywhere they are at and hear his message that he was given for that challenge, be able to do his homework that he was given through that challenge to help people get to the next level. So the 5-day challenge done through a Podcastinar, through an audio, through a private email, a private audio, like you can do all this fun stuff through the Podcastinar platform.
Yes. And so there's challenges. The next one, we helped Kat do her traditional webinar through a Podcastinar. So she actually she has a course called Teacher Easy. It's a webinar, and she helped people avoid the common mistakes that many entrepreneurs make when they create their own course. So it was something that she did as a webinar. And then now people can listen to it at their convenience. And she has an evergreen piece that she could just keep putting out there whenever she wants.
Yep, exactly. So she did the whole process, went through, got people signed up for this webinar, taught them the 90 minutes of everything we were just talking about, right? She gave them value. She get people to be able to walk away with some wins. And then she made her offer, right? And then she gave us that audio and we turned it into Podcastinar, right? So if you're already doing a webinar, how easy is it to do a Podcastinar, Ron?
It's extremely simple. So there's a couple different ways that we'll get into in a little bit to put a Podcastinar together, but it takes very little time to do the steps you need to do. So we'll get over that or get on to that in just a little bit. But there's another thing, there's a bunch of different ways that you can use a Podcastinar. But Dan, he used it to sell his book that he just came out with and his coaching platform. So he just launched a book and he's like, hey, I want to be able to teach my 5-step successful entrepreneur process and funnel people to my new book that's coming out. And he chose Podcastinar to do it.
Yeah. And so his 5-step successful entrepreneur, he was able to go in and teach. For him, it was roughly an hour a day for 5 straight days. And again, guess what? The offer was on the end. And then he's got this audio that he can forever send people to have, again, Ron, I think you've already mentioned this, the evergreen aspect, right? Now, so from a challenge where it's like an hour a day to a traditional 90-minute webinar to teaching about your new book and just having a piece. Now, anytime he wants, he can actually send people and drip it to his email list or drip it to new contacts that he gets, or wherever he is, he can utilize what he got from the Podcastinar in any way he wants to get people to know, like, and trust him for his offer.
Yep. So, guys, why did they do a Podcastinar?
Why? Ron, according to Edison Research, 1 in 5 U.S. podcast listeners are willing to pay for those podcasts that they consume. And I am one of those people. I love podcasts. I will, anytime I drive somewhere, I have a podcast going. There's more podcasts out there that I want to listen to than I have time for, but some of them I will listen to them religiously. And honestly, if it was taken away and somebody said, "Hey, you can have this still for $10 a month," guess what? I would pay $10 a month because they mean that much to me. Podcasts, there is so much great information and taught in a way that it is not your traditional radio commercials, TV commercials. It is not somebody out there trying to make a buck. Honestly, like they might have offers of different things and whatnot, but they're just giving true value in so many different podcast levels.
Yeah, and guys, if you think about what Corey just said, you can make a private podcast and have a premium content at $9-10 a month where people subscribe to your show and they get access to monthly Podcastinars, right? Where you're adding value, even if it's weekly, but you are adding value to a captive audience of people. So they do this because it's conversion. So they want to convert their loyal fans into loyal buyers, right? And if you're on a subscription, what happens to the payment? It's automatic. It's automatic. They're already familiar with you and familiar enough with your message, possibly. And you want to just transition into a subscription-based format. You can also use Podcastinars to do that as well.
Yeah. All right. So at the end of the day, a webinar is one of the greatest ways to get your offer out there and to get the income, hit the income level that you want, right? The webinar is like killer. But if you realize that the headline here, 10x your webinar audience, right? Because not everyone, many people that sign up for a webinar, they are excited about the content. They want to learn the message, but time sitting still for 90 minutes sometimes escapes. But if you can listen to something on the go, like a podcast, and podcasting will continue to grow, more and more people are joining this world of podcasting. More and more people know that is a great way to get their own message out there. And Ron, I forget the number. What's the, like, there's 2 million or 2.2 billion podcasting coming out. Like, it's just insane the number of podcasters that are coming out, and people are loyal to them. Once you find something you like, if you listen to podcasts, I guarantee you're very loyal to the one you listen to. And anytime somebody says, "What podcast do you listen to?" you're going to share that specific one, guaranteed. So if you could take the results of a webinar and 10x it because you have it on a Podcastinar platform, next level, baby.
Yeah, guys. So if you just want to improve how you reach your clients or your fans or the people that you're trying to pitch your offer to, this is a great way. So think about this. You create a Podcastinar, you offer X amount of dollars to get access to this private podcast, which is now jumped into your value ladder for $9. At the end of that Podcastinar, you're going to pitch them an offer, which then can continue taking them up your value ladder.
Oh, Podcastinar is so good. I'm so glad when this came to us, when we started creating it, when we've been able to help people get there, because when creating a Podcastinar is so fun. Webinars are amazing. I love listening to them. But what if you could get your offer published in a different way out to more people? What if you could get a better audience of true listening folks away from that webinar? What if they don't have time for that webinar, but now they can listen? So you're going to do the same thing. If you're going to create the webinar, well, honestly, I suggest you still do that webinar live. You still pitch it, right? But then you have your marketing and you invite them to wherever your Podcastinar is, whether it's private or not, whether it's, on your normal places or not, because it is a way that you can monetize. If you already have a podcast, if you already have a show, this is just another avenue to help monetize what you got going on.
Absolutely. Like, guys, if you really look at getting your message out to people is the key. So if you can narrow it down to a point through your webinar and your marketing, and you're offering this premium content through a Podcastinar that people have to pay to get into. So now they're paying to play. You know they're serious. They want to change, or they're really interested in your offer. You know that buyer is more likely to buy into your offer.
Yep. 7 times, right? They watch you 7 times. If they see your perfect webinar, they start to know, like, and trust you, but then they start listening to the message and they realize, like, what you're giving is gold. Guess what? They're going to buy. Okay. So my Podcastinar it's such an incredible, fun way. And I want to share it with you, right? Well, like anything podcasting, we want to share with the world. We want to help get your message out. So we have something for you. Maybe. Oh, done for you, Podcastinar. What are we doing? Hey, anybody out there, if you want to get your webinar out there, if you want to get your offer out there, all you got to do is record the message. And then, as Ron mentioned before, it can be on video or not, right? I recommend just stay on video and put that offer out there on your webinar, but then give us that audio, because all you have to do next is focus on selling, because we will take care of the rest, right? We're going to upload it. You're going to upload it to us, and we will create all the necessary tools for you, so you can do what's most important, and that is to sell your offer.
Yeah, guys, we want to make sure your webinar becomes a frictionless process that you can just focus on what you do best, which is pitching your thing, whatever that is, and make sure it gets out to as many people as possible over and over and over again, because consistency, we know, is key. So all you have to do is record and upload, and then focus on selling.
Yes. Okay. So how's this going to work?
Let's kind of walk you through this, guys. So what you're going to get is you're going to get 3 days of Podcastinar coaching. And that's Corey and I going through this. What's amazing about this offer compared to other people's offers, we are the fulfillment center. We enjoy doing this, and this makes us happy. So let me explain this. If you get into someone else's offer, they would farm out your stuff. We don't farm it out. It is us. It stays with us. No one else touches your stuff. It's just Corey and I, which is awesome. We also are the coaches. So we are going to help fine-tune your things through our experience of helping hundreds of people launch their shows and helping them create their own Podcastinars. We're going to help coach you through this 3-day process. We're going to provide all the graphics you need. We're going to give you a detailed Trello board so you can do this over and over for all the different offers you may have in your business, where it's a rinse and repeat thing. The one thing that you'll know about Corey and I, we want to teach you something once that you can use over and over and over again. And this is just another way of doing it. We will take care of all the editing, all the publishing, and we're going to give you a share funnel to help drive your customers somewhere after your Podcastinar. And then we're going to host it for you as well.
Yeah. So just real quick on that. If you already have your webinar done and you're just like, hey, how can I make this easier? You can skip the 3 days of coaching. Mm-hmm. But if you need a little help getting things ready and getting things ready to teach, getting things, ready for the entire offer, like that's what part of the 3-day coaching is. So again, if you already have your webinar done that you love, you can be like, hey guys, I'm going to skip step 1. I'm going to go to step 2. This is what I need. Here we go. Right. And then same if on the step 6, Podcastinar hosting. If you already have a podcast, you may or may not have the ability to host a second private piece. And if you do, then great. We'll put it right onto yours. But if you don't have to go buy anything new. We got you. Got you. So Podcastinar hosting with us, no worries. We will get you out there so you can get your message heard.
Yep, absolutely, guys. So let's talk about this crazy offer. I know Black Friday's coming, and this is a crazy deal.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, all the stuff that we went through the slide before, steps 1 through 6, that total value is $7,982. Again, coaching, Trello board, share funnel, graphics, editing, publishing, and hosting. Now, Ron, on our website, up until yesterday, we've been selling this whole thing for $497. But you convinced me to do something a little crazy.
It is crazy. And as I'm looking at it, I think you're crazy. You should have talked me out of this.
I tried. All right, the coaching alone. I mean, the editing alone would cost more than this $197.
Yeah, it would. But again, guys, it's about getting your message out, and we know we can help you do that. And this is a way for us to help you get your message out in a different way that helps you become evergreen.
So what if you already have 5 offers out there? What if you already have 5 different webinars that you've been doing or that you have on autopilot? Is Podcastinar for you?
Yes.
Yes. We can do 5 different Podcastinars for you, right? If you send them to the specific audience that you need, it'll go to it. It's such a unique way to turn your webinar into a podcast, to marry them to and have your own very own Podcastinar. Who is this not for, Ron? Who is a Podcastinar not for?
It is not for someone that does not have an offer, does not want to be online, does not want to do a webinar, and does not have a business presence online.
What if somebody wants all this, but hasn't quite figured out all the details of what they are offering?
We can help them sometimes in just that 3-day Podcastinar coaching.
Exactly. And that's why I mentioned that, because we could, if you have an idea, we can help you through our 3 days of coaching, get it nailed down to exactly what you're going to be offering, exactly what you're going to be teaching in your very own Podcastinar for only $197.
That's crazy. That's a crazy price. But guys, it is not something we're going to stay at this price for long. It is going to end probably Black Friday, because that's our cutoff day. We want to make sure.
What if it was? I mean, what if we had the end date to this to be November 30th? Oof. So that gives everybody just after Black Friday.
All right. Well, okay. November 30th, cart closes. No questions. It is done. It's $197. It's going right back up to the $497 mark on 11/30.
Okay. So hurry, run, don't walk. Head on over to podcastinar.com and let us take your webinar and turn it into your very own Podcastinar. Let us take your challenge and turn it into your very own Podcastinar. Or let us take your anything, any audio, and turn it into a Podcastinar that has any audio with an offer, any audio with a training, and let's go. Let's run all through the podcast land.
Guys, let us help you create a small income on just setting up a private podcast that will help get your customers into your value ladder faster.
All right. One final thing on Podcastinar, Ron. It is such a fun way to do your message, right? So anybody that's been trying to get something out there, if you've been wanting to do a podcast, but you don't have something to say, if you've been wanting to do a webinar, but you're afraid of the camera, let us help you. Let us get you to the next level. And as Ron mentioned, get people in your value ladder through your very own Podcastinar.
Yeah, guys, we are looking forward to helping you 10x your audience to your webinar through Podcastinars.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Bye, guys.